Hey, everybody. How is
Hello.
everybody?
How are you?
Hey, Dr. Lamb.
Hey, how is everybody?
Good.
All right, let's see. We were on another Zoom, and we just about was too late for class. I know y'all would have hated that. All right, let's see. And of course, I'm unprepared. Get out of the way. There we go. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Sure, I've got the right day, the 29th. All right, this is the next to the last one. We've only got one more next week. So we're here tonight for case study 4. I did have a request for one group to go first. Let's see. I can close that out and close that out. All right, so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to stop my share. And so, Amy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, what I'm going to do is, are you prepared with your presentation?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to make you the host so you can share your screen. Will that work?
Yes, that's fine.
All right, I want to make sure that we do that. I'm going to make you the host, and I'm going to stop my share, and I'll turn my video off, and you should be able to share your screen. Just hit share.
Okay, hold on, give me 1 second.
Great.
Okay, can everyone see it?
We can. Great. Thank you. Amy and Victoria.
Okay. Victoria, you can kind of just jump in whenever you are ready.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so we just outlined each slide answers one of the questions that were a part of the case study. So the first question says, how might the principal approach this in future meetings with her teachers? And is it necessary to choose one approach over the other? So essentially what happened in the case study is a group of parents came into the school and approached the principal about the instruction that was happening in the classroom. The parents felt that their students were kind of being neglected through the instruction because the teacher was focusing their attention on the students with special education needs. And so when Victoria and I talked about it, we felt like the biggest issue in this case study was that the principal was unaware of what was actually happening in the classroom.
Yay!
So we felt like it was concerning that when the parents came to the school that the principal had to kind of like gather facts from the teachers in the different grade levels before she could ever even address the situation. So that's kind of where we started. And then we said we felt like it was necessary to choose one approach over the other. So that all students receive the same instruction. We felt like a discussion needed to be had on the integration and the use of specialists in the classroom and how the principal felt like that was going to be utilized in each of the classrooms in the school. And then on this side, we also just went ahead and included the definition of inclusion versus mainstream. Inclusion is bringing support systems to the child, while mainstreaming is selective placement of special education students in, quote, regular education classes.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of overall, we just felt like the issue was with the principal not knowing, and then we felt like once that was kind of addressed, an approach needed to be chosen for the school.
Yeah, I mean, you need to communicate clearly what you expect as a principal. What is your district policy, and you need to clearly communicate those expectations.
Right. Victoria,
Okay,
you want to hear this?
Yes. The next question, what is the path Eugenia should take? When Amy and I discussed this, we felt that Eugenia, first of all, needs to sit down with the teachers in a building and ensure that the teachers understand law and policy with special education and the rights of all of the students. And we felt that clear roles needed to be defined and expectations outlined. Because you had a group of teachers who felt that the education of the special education teachers should be left to the specialists and it wasn't their problem. Then you had people like, the teacher in this that the parents had an issue with, who were, relegating jobs of helping to teach them to the other kids who were finished with their work. Not understanding that finished with my work doesn't mean I've mastered the standard. I just finished this assignment. So the needs of any students cannot be neglected due to the needs of another student. And that's where we got back to what Amy said, to where there was no concern. It's like they have this workbook, they're finished the workbook, they understand it. Here, go help the other children. And so they really weren't being educated in a sense. I mean, she was doing something with them, but she was focusing all of her time on her special education students, it seemed.
Okay, great. You've hit the next note. Y'all are just killing it. Y'all are just killing it. I'm telling you, if you had a better instructor, y'all just, I would be the limit.
The next question we said, is one point of view more correct than the other, and why? And when we got to this question, we just talked about differentiated instruction is the point of view that is most appropriate.
That is correct.
We felt like teachers should be working with specialists to devise differentiated instruction. All students should be given the opportunity to have their needs met. And then this kind of like, and again, Victoria kind of touched on this, we just talked a lot about how, I teach high school, so that's kind of what I know, but like
same here.
Enrichment activities are provided for those that, need the enrichment, while some students need that specialized instruction. And that is part of the reason we have specialists in the building. So we just felt like the teachers really needed to understand like kind of the purpose of differentiated instruction and what that means for the students and the different levels in the classroom. Because clearly they had students of all different levels, and some were getting instruction while it seemed like others weren't. So we talked about grouping and how grouping should be strategic in the classroom, and we said the quote regular students should not be turned into tutors for the other students. Instead, the teacher and the specialist should be working together, for enrichment or extension activities for the students that need that.
All right, let me ask you an ancillary question there. Do you think that having regular students teach the other students, if you got sued for malpractice or mispractice, do you think you could win that case, or do you think you'd lose it?
Probably lose.
I think you'd lose it.
I think you'd lose it.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much. I think that's malpractice.
Right. Yeah.
It is.
They're students just like any other students.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
what would be the difference in putting them outside with a pick and a shovel and make them work all day?
Right.
I don't see a lot different. I mean, maybe I am misinterpreting that, but I certainly wouldn't want a child of mine who I'm expecting to go and learn and be worked with and accelerate how far they could go. I would certainly expect that to be happening, not for them to be doing remedial work with other kids all the time.
Right.
Sometimes the mistake is made of because they have finished and they've gotten to a specific level on a certain activity or standard that we feel is mastered. And I think for some people, I mean, I'm just be honest, I think they think it's a headache to try to find other work for them. So let me
Yes.
just put them to work over here. But there is always another level. You've never completely mastered everything. There's always something else. Or if there isn't anything else, they'll get them started on the next standard. You should
Yeah.
always be prepared. So you already know where you're going next, but you should never have students, a parent or an administrator should never walk in and see like students leading groups that they're tutoring or whatever because you're overwhelmed and whatever. Everyone should always have something to do. And I'm gonna just be honest, I've seen that happen. So
I have too. But think about the level of work that all they're doing with them is the lowest level remedial work, way below
Right,
their
so,
level. How can we accelerate that child, like you talking about, to that next level? I mean, how
yeah,
can?
and the thing is, and the teacher was justifying it by saying like they were demonstrating that they understood it because they could teach it to someone else. I was like, okay,
But
that's okay. So they understand that, but what happens to them now? So yeah.
they never get above that introductory level, that basic level, and basically they're just vegetating. And so I just I think it's malpractice, but that's my perspective. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. All right, I'll stop interrupting.
Oh. Okay. What kind of collaboration from the children's families might the principal and the teachers propose in order to improve the inclusive education program, encourage an appreciation for diversity, and stimulate learning for all of the students at the school? When we were talking, we said, I guess something vital would be having a curriculum night so that parents would kind of know what instruction in that building is going to look like, what's expected at the different grade levels. Because a lot of times when you do curriculum nights, you have people from the different departments and they do explain what their role is, what their job is. You would have your specialists and everyone there. So parents kind of have an understanding of what's expected and what their children will be doing. We
Okay.
also say you could do family nights. We also
All
you
right.
could do family nights to promote community and diversity, because this is where you have students displaying the types of work and the level of work that they're doing. So then parents can see, okay, there is some evidence of the types of things that they're doing within the classroom and within the school. That's
All right.
basically what we came up with.
Okay. Which of the two evidences that we've done this summer does this slide represent in terms of short-term goals and long-term goals? This is the skip. You were
Yes, the
supposed to
skip.
take what you learned in the skip and apply it to, everything we've been learning this summer and apply it. This is the application of the skip. This is one of those times when you would apply what you learned in the skip to this situation. This is exactly what you're supposed to do. This is an example of short and long-term goals to communicate with parents. We do short-term goals on communication to make sure that we've connected with them, and then we use that as a force multiplier to have curriculum nights, to have parent nights. For the exact purpose that we're talking about here right now. This is in practice how you would use what you learned in the skip. This is the perfect answer. This is what you were supposed to have gotten out of this course or doing the skip this spring. Is yes, this is how you take and do that then. And so
Awesome.
Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better. Excellent.
Thank you.
And then for this one, as an expert in the area of learning and evaluation, what might Ishmael, the technical coordinator, do to integrate and create some harmony out of the differences in opinion among the teachers? And this is where we kind of talked about is it seemed like the staff might need some professional development on the idea of inclusion in the classroom. We felt like it might be beneficial for them to see some presentations on different strategies for like actually utilizing the specialists, because when you saw the different ways the grade levels were utilizing specialists and or not utilizing them, it just seemed like the school was kind of all over the place. And again, the principal didn't even know what was happening, so we felt like if there was professional development, it could kind of get the whole school on the same page. And then we also felt like classroom walkthroughs and observations might give teachers the opportunity to see strengths and weaknesses of different teachers and how continued professional development would increase student achievement in the school.
All right.
We really just felt like there needed to be some education for the staff.
All right. What does this relate back to? Which evidence that we did this spring?
Is that the OMA?
That's the OMA task 2.
Mhm.
It's exactly what this is. That's what you were supposed to take away from it. Again, perfect answer. You're hitting all the notes. You're putting it all together now. Now you see why the OMA and the SKIP go with this course and these particular legal issues. You have a way to address your problems or your issues through the evidences that you did this semester. That's why this one, as I told you last week or week before, this will tie everything that we've done this semester together. You've got to pull everything that we've learned from our evidences, the OMA and the SKIP. You've got to put all the law, the special ed, this pulls it all together. And this is exactly what you're supposed to do. You need to be out there doing classroom walkthroughs. You need to be doing professional development based on what you saw. You need to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing. That's why we did task 2, which is task 1, 2, and 3 of your APTEL, where we develop a professional development plan. It's based on our walkthrough data. Are you beginning to see the connections now? That's what, that's the goal of these case studies, is start to put all this stuff together and make connections on how you actually run a school. How do you do all these disparate pieces? How do you pull it all together in a cohesive way and go forward as one cohesive group? This is how you do it. Perfect answer.
Thank you.
And then we have, what actions might Sylvia take with the families of the children in question in order to learn and share the achievements and experiences they have observed among the children? And we really kind of talked back and forth about that. We said, as far as with the families of the children in question, these were the families that had the issue. We said just having just open and honest conversations with the parents, assuring them that the children will be provided opportunities for enrichment, just making it clear as to what the requirements are within the classroom, and just, like we said again, just reassuring them that their students are getting every chance and every opportunity to grow as much as they possibly can, and assure the parents that implementation of strategies to see growth for all students is a focus for that school staff.
Okay. And this links back to OMA Task 1, where we had you do a review of all of the programs, the special programs in your school, so that we would know what every child is supposed to be getting, all the way from our EC kids to our AIG kids. That's why we reviewed that. You need to know that, because that's what you've got to make sure teachers are doing and what you communicate to parents. That's why you had to do that review of your special programs in task 1 of the OMA. This is the application of that. Again, another perfect answer.
Awesome. Okay, and that's pretty much all we had.
Yep.
All right. Let me see.
Do you need me to stop the share?
Yeah, I'm reclaiming the host right now. All right. And so, Rosie, are you ready to go?
Yes, Dr. Lamb, our group is ready to go. I think Geraldine's going to do the share.
Okay. Let me find her. There we are. All right, Geraldine, I've made you the host. I'll stop my share. Excellent.
All right. Ladies, y'all ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so Dr. Lamb, I don't know if we really need to go back over the review of the case, but we did extract some of the main points
Yes,
from the case.
you can skip that
You would
part.
you would like us to go ahead? Okay. So in our first question, we answered how the principal might approach this in future meetings with the teachers, and is it necessary to choose one approach over the other? Our answers are pretty similar to the first group. We did say that the principal might consider doing a different approach by observing what's happening in the classrooms. I like to say very often in my current role as a curriculum specialist with coaches that you can't expect what you don't inspect. So it appeared that Eugenia didn't really know what was happening in her classrooms.
That's
and
correct.
So it was, you know, it was a small act of negligence as far as being able to account for what was truly taking place with her teachers. I believe that if she had been doing some walkthroughs and some observations, she would have been able to pinpoint this issue that parents were having long before the parents brought it to her attention.
Yeah, you can't be the one that's surprised. It's your job not
Absolutely.
to be surprised. You can't be the last
Right.
to know what's going on
And
in
Dr.
your
Lamb,
own
we
building.
also went back to the culture of the building and talked about, you know, how does she present the special ed model? You know, we talked about, you know, inclusion versus mainstreaming as well. And, you know, mainstreaming is a pretty old term, and it's not used very often because it assumes that the kids coming to us are different from the start. And all kids are general ed kids first. And so all kids walk into the building with the same rights as every other person sitting in that school. And then, you know, from there you have to individualize for both AG kids and SPED kids, but the culture goes back to all kids are general ed kids first.
I sat in on a doctoral final defense presentation today on MTSS, inclusion, RTI, and that was the point of that research from that doctoral student is that teachers don't think that they have ownership in all children. That is correct. And if you're going to be a successful school, back to the culture, we're responsible for every child. We are accountable for every child. We don't have certain kids in our building. It's not our problem. They have to all belong to us, and we have to assume that ownership for all of them. That is correct. Excellent point.
All right, so for this next one, it's what is the path that Eugenia, the principal, should take? So we were just looking at, are the IEPs in the classroom being followed? And then how are Sylvia's teacher evaluations? So has she been evaluated? Going back to, does the principal know what's going on in her classroom? Is she teaching appropriate content for the grade level? Is she differentiating her instruction for the kids that she has in her classroom? We also looked at the instructional coach involvement and then MTSS as well. So with tier 1 being that everyone gets this, it's from the teacher, it's in the reg ed classroom. Tier 2 for those kids who need just a little extra help, they're also getting that in the reg ed classroom from the teacher. But then once you get to that tier 3, That's after tier 2 interventions don't work and those students need to be pulled out of that red egg classroom for a little additional extra support from some type of interventionist or specialist. And then also, if she's not following, appropriate protocol with like the SPED kids, is she following appropriate protocol for the AIG kids as well? Probably not. So how are the AIG students in her classroom being challenged? Are they being challenged?
Amen. I agree with that. Absolutely.
Okay, so the next question asks, is there one point of view more correct than the other and why? I think Mary, this one you wanted to expound on?
Yep. So again, we went back to the fact that all kids are gen ed students first. Certainly for our SPED kids, we've got to follow the law. We've got to ensure that their needs are followed as outlined in their IEP, and all teachers must follow that, from the gen ed teachers to the elective teachers. Everybody must follow those. What is board policy? Different districts have different policy on services and how they provide services. And so what does your board say? And then what does the data tell? What are we looking at as far as achievement and our kids meeting growth? And lastly, serving students with SPEDS is not the responsibility of other students. We cannot, like you said to the previous group, it would not hold in a court of law if we said, well, we left, Billy in charge of Joey's,
Yeah, that wouldn't go well.
It's not going to go well. We don't even write in IEPs anymore copy of peer notes, because you can't put that onus on another student.
Exactly. Exactly.
One of the other points we made with this question was that it's not to say that having students collaborate in groups that mesh special ed kids with regular ed kids. It's okay to do that, but it doesn't mean that the regular ed kids are to carry the weight. The teacher still has a responsibility to make sure that special ed students are receiving the services they need. So if they need to do pullouts within the collaborative groups to make sure that the SPED kids are either near where the regular ed kids are, it's still their responsibility. So we have to be very careful to not discourage collaboration, but to teach teachers how to do that.
And also for that scaffolding and modeling, we often want our SPED kids to see that higher level thinking of our higher students. We have to give them the opportunity to do that, but it's, the teacher is still responsible for delivering the instruction.
And then just to add a little to that, you don't pair your high flyers with the struggling students and hope that they're going to be able to drag them to the finish line.
Yeah, they won't get it by osmosis. Just because you sit next to a smart kid, that won't make you smarter. I've tried that, didn't work for me. So I don't know why we think that works. It doesn't. That's just bad practice.
Yeah, so for this question, what kind of collaboration from children's families might the principal and the teachers propose in order to improve the program itself? We had discussed the curriculum open house, like inviting parents, all parents, and just providing more resources and more explanation as to how it works and how the resources in the classroom work themselves, just so they have a better understanding of what's going on in the classroom, and encouraging parent volunteers, just encouraging them to be there and see what's going on and how things are going, how other students are reacting, and absorbing the information and just their progress in general. Making the resources available, like having links on teacher sites for those tech-savvy parents, but also having documents in parents' native languages. Like myself, I speak Spanish, and I always like to send newsletters home in both languages, and I like to also sometimes have those resources online just so they can have a way to translate them without needing help if they don't understand something or need to define a word or whatnot. And providing parents just an easier way to communicate, like email or text. I, for example, use Google Voice in Class Dojo, and I know Mary had mentioned she used to record her newsletters when she was, in years past, and she would send those home just so they could have something to listen to and to go off on, and just, keeping parents informed, just keeping them in the loop, what's going on, or if there's a challenge or a struggle, and just having that open door and letting them feel comfortable with, you know, the teacher and the process and everything.
Absolutely. Back to the skip again.
Mhm.
That communication is critical. And then having those parent activities that are around something other than ball games, that are actually curriculum based. That's how you move a school. Just having parents show up for a ball game won't do a thing for your academics. This is how you move your academics.
Okay, in this next area, we're looking at how Ismail, who's the technical coordinator, could support the learning and the instruction there to integrate and create harmony among the teachers who have difference of opinion. I think that we think that Ismail and Eugenia should be in a partnership. So as Eugenia's going around and doing observations and Ishmael's going around and doing walkthroughs, they should be having some type of debrief where they can identify what the largest needs are from what they're seeing in instruction, and from that design professional development for all teachers. Also, he might design a series of instructional rounds for teachers to go and observe their colleagues so that they can see what is actually happening. And Eugenia might accompany him or any of the other assistant principals, if there are any, to discuss what's really observed. We believe that that's going to increase the understanding for one another and, you know, build some empathy and camaraderie among the teachers, and also allow them to put on a new set of lens to then reflect on their own practice, discuss their challenges and questions in a safe environment. So it goes back to that school climate and culture. If the culture is strong, then everything else is going to be easier to fall into place. And then Eugenia needs to consider whole group faculty meeting with not only her SPED teachers, not only the teachers who parents are having issues with, but everyone, so that she's not only communicating to a portion of her staff where she can reinforce the expectations and congratulate their efforts. And that's going to build that collective teacher efficacy where every teacher feels like they can make a difference in what's happening with the learning environment.
Excellent. So let me ask a question of everybody right now related to this slide. Have you ever been in a school where during the opening work days of the school year, you had the required work day and you were doing staff development and you were doing whole group for the whole school in terms of a school-wide initiative, and the principal not show up for the staff development? Now, the corollary to that is, how successful was that staff development? So who's got to lead the whole group?
Principal.
It sends a message that the leader doesn't believe in.
There you go.
So why should we?
Yeah.
There you go. The principal has to take the lead on the whole group. Now, that doesn't mean you have to teach it all and teach it all day. As we learned in the APTEL when we put our professional development plans in, we've got to be judicious in whole group, do more small group PLC, and then do one-on-one coaching. But the leader of the organization must at least kick off the whole group and needs to be there the whole time that staff development is taking place. Otherwise, it doesn't appear that they're supportive, and that it will be wholly unsuccessful. That's one of those lessons learned. Okay.
So we were kind of just tied our resources from our other slide into this one sort of, but just took it in a little deeper. And we were discussing how if families of the children had questions, you know, how could those be answered within the classroom themselves, not necessarily just talking to the parents, but with the data walls and having the parent visits, which goes along with the parent volunteers, just being in the classroom, being present, having the newsletters, kind of like what I mentioned, having them in both languages and sending them out, not just like once every 2 months, but, you know, being consistent with it and doing it with fidelity, having a student of the week to highlight, you know, progress and positive feedback on their academic growth, and promoting a diverse learning environment, which again go back to differentiation and celebrating their small baby steps, because baby steps is still progress overall. And again, the willingness to communicate with parents when they have questions, not just kind of brushing them off or giving them a quick packet like, oh, you have to read it or it's in here, the answer's in here, but actually explaining to them what's going on and actually answering the questions, showing them how much you care, which I know Geraldine had made a point of that when we met as a group to discuss the case study, that, you know, you have to show them how much you care.
That's right.
correct.
I like to say also that, you know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that Sylvia's background of having a number of years in education and then moving to this particular community for the purpose of giving back will soften the parents a little bit and not have this opinion of her that's pretty skewed based on the lack of communication or the lack of an open door policy. So knowing her heart for the kids will help them think about her approach in a different way.
Definitely.
Mhm. It's a great point.
And that is it.
Okay. Excellent presentation. Excellent. Jonathan, are you going to be our next presenter?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Okay, let me reclaim the host. Jonathan, you are now the host. You can share your screen and get started.
Just a moment.
Great.
Sorry, I went full screen there, and then when I was hitting the space bar, it was going through the thing and letting me, instead of letting me speak.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, like the others, we did, you know, the background story too, but
Yes.
we'll skip that. So insights. It's always preferable for a special needs student to be placed in the regular education setting unless the severity of their disability, even with IEP aid, causes an extreme disruption to the learning environment. EC teachers are being encouraged more and more to be in the classrooms assisting EC students instead of pulling these students out of the room.
Okay, teachers were talking, next question. Teachers was talking about getting help for the EC department, but are the EC teachers going into Sylvia's classroom to assist? Had the principal completed any observations of the teachers' observation of Sylvia? If so, had she noticed anything wrong with her teaching methods? And has data been reviewed to prove the students are performing worse than other classes? And are the breakdown of student populations unfairly placed? These are questions that from the case study that you don't know, but had some measures been put in place prior to, how you say, the lid popping off, she could have avoided a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. But I think you bring a good question there in when we talked about how you build a master schedule. You know, you do your federal programs first, including exceptional children. And part of that is we make sure that we don't put all EC kids in one class. That's part of that first step of scheduling the school is our federal law comes first. We can't just put all of our EC kids in one class and say, well, they're just in a regular classroom because they're with a regular teacher. That does not, I mean, that's identifiable. That's against the law. That's what we're talking about when we do our federal law first. And so if we've got a third grade of 100 students and 20 of them are EC, those 20 can't be in the same classroom. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about federal law comes first. If you've got 5 classrooms, then you need to have 4 kids, 4 EC kids in each one, not 20 in one class. And that's a great point that we've covered this semester as well. When we talked about how do you schedule a school in task 3, we have to follow that rationale of federal law. Federal law says, we're doing an inclusion model. That means that we equally disperse our EC kids among our classes, not all go to one.
And I wonder how many, and I wonder how many experience that, especially when you got teen teachers for grade levels and being at a middle school. I found it in being at a school for number of years. They want to put them all on one team.
Yeah, that's
one team, versus they evenly dispersing them, and it makes it work. And then you get that, oh wow, where's all the behaviors coming from?
Exactly.
Yeah,
back to that master schedule. You didn't properly place them.
Yeah, that's bad. That's what we would generally refer to as a bad master schedule. And that's why I said when you get a bad master schedule, you got to go back to the source. What was your process for scheduling? What was the process that led to that bad schedule? Well, you didn't follow that federal law that said we got to disperse those kids. You went by teacher input first, and certain teachers, I don't want them kids. That's not my responsibility. That's number 5, taking precedent over number 1, and that's the definition of a bad schedule.
And there's another situation too, even with instead of the teacher saying, well, they're not my responsibility. One of my friends works at an elementary school in Rowan County, and she has the majority of her kids are EC, based off the principal's suggestion that she is one of the best teachers in the grade level. So he wants her to have all the EC students.
Oh, man. Well,
Is that a reward or a punishment?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I had that, and me being an elective technology teacher, I had a class with teaching computers, 21 year, 21 kids, 15 was EC, and no one was coming in with them. And the motto was, and the idea was, you handle them so well. And I did, and I had very little discipline issues in there. But my ability to get through the content, I didn't obviously get where I needed to go.
Well, we could also achieve that same discipline and control if we split them all up. But that's what I mean is what they're saying is you help us break the law and make everybody else's day easier. But you're exactly right. There's no way if you've got 15 out of 21 EC kids that you got to the content that you needed to cover with no assistance from an EC teacher. It's just not possible. Again, these are examples of what the personification of a bad schedule. I mean, there's people involved. See, that's what you got to remember about a master schedule. When I say this is the personification of a master schedule, you say, what do you mean, Dale? Personification means people. Master schedule is people, both teachers and students. A master schedule is just how you organize people. And putting 15 out of 21 kids in one class EC is the personification. It has people implications. That's the personification of a bad schedule. You can't fix that by just moving a kid here and there. Well, this one's giving me a little trouble. We'll move him. No, fix your process. Don't start monkeying with the schedule. You just make things worse. The teacher you give that one bad one to, now she's mad. That's what we're talking about. Design a process that's equitable and meets the needs of all children to begin with, and you won't get into these kinds of things. And if people are mad, then they need to work somewhere else. They don't need to be working for you. Never apologize for doing the right thing.
Okay, what slide are we on?
Let's see. All right, so question one, reflection. How might the principal approach this in future meetings with her teachers? Is it necessary to choose one approach over the other? So that she needs to allow the EC students to remain in the classroom being taught by the teacher with IEP support from the EC faculty. It's vital to go with the route approved by the district policy and likely outlined in the IEP, which will discourage segregation and encourage collaboration. Meet with teachers to set tone and expectations of differentiation, and gather and collect information to assess needed PD with classroom walkthroughs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What is the path Eugenia should take? She needs to review the data, observations, and compare. Upon her findings, if students in Sylvia class are performing less, if she is ignoring the regular ed student, she should be assisted by the EC department. If students in Sylvia class are not performing any less than the other classes, she needs to support Sylvia in regards to the parents.
Is one point of view more correct than the other, and why? The only path or model that matters is the policy the district has adopted, which is inclusion as a best practice being used across the state. The goal to follow the IEP and convey that all students have the right to education with their peers.
That is correct.
Okay, question 4. What kind of collaboration from the children family might the principal and the teacher propose in order to improve the inclusion education program, encourage an appreciation for diversity and stimulate learning for all students at school? Curriculum night is a suggestion that include all areas. That you can have a data party to be results driven to support all. Surveys need to be given to all parents to learn how each family's to learn how to help each family's child, and then offer a parent workshop to educate parents on the issues. A diversity fair will be helpful, and whole school projects.
What actions might Sylvia take with the families of the children in question in order to learn and share achievements and experiences they have observed among the children? Meet criteria of all students and be knowledgeable of all resources. Utilize inclusion and AIG collaborative specialists more. Work closer with curriculum facilitation and coaches. Distribute a bi-weekly newsletter or flyer to keep families informed of progress. And an achievement wall with and leadership awards.
I like that, keeping parents informed of progress. That can head off a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So as we look at the 4 paradigms of ethics, starting with justice, all students need to be treated fair and inclusive. Every child has the right to basically attend school with their peers in the least restrictive environment. Avoid malpractice and or neglect.
For care, show concern and support for parents, teachers, and above all the students. Do fidelity checks because administration cannot make the mistake in thinking everyone will or can change.
Okay. Critique. Do your research. Where's the data? Provide and communicate a clear direction. Principal had no idea what was going on in her school.
Mm-hmm.
Profession. Always follow the law. Know what is going on before approaching your teacher. Admin has a duty to adequately supervise instruction and work with teachers to improve instruction.
That's what they pay you for.
Mm-hmm. The end.
Yeah. Please remember, in 115C 288, you are legally required to supervise and help and work with teachers to improve their instruction. It's exactly what it says. That's what they pay you for. And so that you don't do that, somebody from the central office is going to come out and have the critical conversation with you. Unfortunately, that used to have to be me. What were you doing that we weren't paying you for that kept you from doing what we were paying you for? How can you be principal of a school and not get in the classrooms? That's kind of what we do here. What do they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. What do we do in public school? We teach kids. That's what we do. That's our core competency. What do you mean you don't know what's going on in the rooms? That's unacceptable. We used to have to help people like that find other work. All right, so I'm going to reclaim the host. Maria, are you ready?
We are. Shawana is going to share her screen.
Okay. Shawana is now the host. Excellent.
Sorry, I was still muted. Good evening.
Hey, Shawana, go ahead and share your screen. You're ready to go.
Okay. Whiteboard, where is it? Nope, don't want that. Go on. It's not, of course, not pulling up my. Try it again. Here we go.
There we go.
As many times I do this a day, you think I could do it in my sleep by now. We jump right, with everybody going ahead of us, we know what the background of the story is, so I'm jumping right into it. How might the principal approach this in future meetings? We felt like the meeting should definitely review the vision and mission statement. I liked when the details of the story stated that her belief was everything was inclusive. That is the vision and mission of the school. Full and total inclusion of all students is essential to the school's success. But it does not sound like her staff is on the page with that, and she need to get them all on the same page that this is our vision and it's not negotiable. It's the school philosophy, and that is what we are going to do. We felt like she needed to make it clear that there would be inclusive classrooms. Kids could also still be in separate setting, but everything is going to be based on the needs of the students as determined by the IEP, not on any adult's preference. The path she should take is offered should be based on the needs of the students as written in the individual education plans and provide the least restrictive environments, ensuring that FAPE and IDA is being followed, which says guaranteed that students with disability have equal access to education. And I don't care how many parents barge in there complaining, she can't take that away from them. Moving forward, she needs to review the information for special needs population to ensure the needs of the students are being met. I think she needs to review services for everything, 504s, IEPs, AIG, all the good acronyms, so that she knows what's going on in her building and how everybody is being served, because she should have never been blindsided with those parents coming into her office. And then offering differentiation of instruction through professional development. Like everyone has said, she's doing the teacher seemed like she was doing a one size fit all.
Yes.
And teaching to the middle of the road, not providing any enrichment. Differentiation doesn't mean just watering it down. She can go up as well. It sounded good that she had kids working collaboratively, doing collaboration. However, that can't be every day, all the time. One point of view more correct than the other, and why? I said again, with FAPE, we must ensure all students have access to the curriculum. The parent wants to ensure the child's needs are being met regardless of abilities. Teachers is that inclusion versus separate setting differentiation must take place, and where applicable, specially designed instruction has to be delivered. That's not negotiable. Maria, you jumping in here? You want me to keep going?
I can go ahead and jump in.
Okay.
So it talks about the collaboration for from the children's families. We discussed having curriculum night and then some different family nights, such as STEAM night, multicultural night, math night, nights that are fun and engaging, but curriculum based so that the parents can come out and actively engage with the students, some of the different activities that they're doing in the school.
Mm-hmm.
As far as ISMEL is concerned, we felt like staff development on differentiation of instruction, talking about different instructional methods and small group training, brainstorming ideas during the PLCs, and doing walkthroughs to collect data were important.
Mm-hmm. Those small group PLCs is where I think you get the best staff development. That's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent point.
And I like the idea of the walkthroughs, not just walking through so that you know, but coming back with the data so that you can implement a plan on targeting what needs to be corrected.
That's correct. That's why you collect that data and you put it in aggregate and you see themes start to develop.
Yes.
That's exactly right. That's the beauty of walkthroughs. That's the beauty of them. That's the efficacy of walkthroughs, is you pick out themes. Absolutely.
And then finally, we talked about with the families and the children that were in question, making sure that there's frequent communication with the families and allowing a window into the day, such as through weekly emails, website, class apps like Dojo and Blooms, so the parents can see what's going on, sharing standards, major assignments, even sharing pictures of their child engaged in different activities in the classroom, and then offering enrichment opportunities.
I felt like the family shouldn't just get a window into their students' day just from what the kids come home and say. I think the principal could take the approach of being more transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And that could fight off the parents feeling like they only got one side of the story and not really what's going on. Okay. I can stop share now, maybe.
Okay. Excellent. And I was during the last one. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
I wanted to just share that you saying this week I have seen a whole lot and thought of you many times this week with you have to know what's going on in your classrooms. We had a parent complain about what was happening in online sessions, but because my principal has been so engaged, she knew that district policy was being followed. Then we were in a meeting with this assistant superintendent and they started looking at individual teachers' grade books and what was happening, how teachers were entering things and weren't following district expectation during the pandemic. And principals were embarrassed because their school name flashed across the screen and their teachers weren't doing the right thing and they had no clue.
Exactly.
And I was like, this is why Dr. Lamb says you have to know what's going on in your building or you're going to be embarrassed and in trouble.
That's exactly right.
So,
you know, even in the role that I'm in now, I have 3 full-time, but I have 31 adjuncts in this program, and you've met many of them. You met Dr. Massengill and Dr. Tobias this semester. You had your instructors and coaches last semester, and you'll have more next semester. As you notice, I'm the anomaly. I teach on Wednesday night. And you ever wonder why I'm the only one that teaches on Wednesday night? I teach on Wednesday night, so guess what I get to do on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights? I join those sessions. They have to send me the link to their classes, and they have to send me the recording in case I didn't make it. And so on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights, I randomly check in on the Zoom sessions. I don't know that anybody makes me do that. It's just force of habit. You got to know what's going on in your rooms. If you don't, why are they paying you? That's what they pay you to do. And so I'm just old and I'm, set in my ways, and I've done it forever. And so I continue to do it. But it is a best practice, not because I do it, but it is a best practice. You got to know what's going on, because you're going to get embarrassed if you don't. You will get embarrassed. All right. Do we have one more presentation?
No.
So who's going to go? Who have we got? It's going to be our. Do we have another one? Jeanette?
Yes, Dr. Lamb, we still have to go. I have a power outage, so if you could share with the general, I think that he's ready to
Okay.
go.
All right. Okay. I'm struggling with that as well. The storm is about the time we started, I've had a bad one, but it's just passed. It has settled down here. So hopefully it'll pass before long, but I know exactly what I'm experiencing the same thing. All right. So I have made General the host. You can share now. Great. Jeanette's in the dark. I stay in the dark. It's kind of a state of being.
All righty.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. And I'm going to probably go kind of quicker than we would if we were at the beginning, because I feel like a lot of the things in our presentation and things that we talked about were the things that we talked about with class just now. So our principal approach, we feel like she should have gathered information and she needs to know what's going on in those classrooms. We didn't like that she was surprised. I don't understand that.
Yes.
Did be creating a shared vision and a shared pedagogy or a shared instructional framework. It doesn't seem like her vision and mission for the school has been shared, or if it's been shared, it's not something that the teachers really buy into, because
it didn't take.
Putting their own little spin on it. We feel like she needs professional development for the entire staff. And one of the things that we mentioned that hasn't been mentioned is a vertical PD piece, because it seemed like each grade level that they talked to had a different approach to doing things. And so those grade levels, or a representative from those grade levels, needs to be in the room together as they're learning this approach. And then the vision of the school doesn't seem to have been communicated to the community at all. If these parents seem upset about inclusion, or it's hard to say, because on one hand, they seem like they're upset because there's what their student is reporting. So it's a perceived issue that this principal doesn't know if it's a real issue or not until she walks into a classroom. But then also, that vision of integration has not been communicated to the community as a shared vision. If you want to go to the next one. So when we asked if it was necessary to choose one approach over another, we kind of said yes and no, because whatever the IEP says you're going to do for that child's service is what you're going to do, whether that's pull out or inclusion. That has to be dictated in that IEP. But then what you do in the Reg Ed classroom has to be supported, differentiated, and scaffolded. So we are talking about, so when an EC and Reg Ed teacher are collaborating in an inclusion environment, the Reg Ed teacher is really focused on the grade level standards with the scaffolded supports and differentiation, while the EC teacher in that room is focusing on more of the IEP goals or getting those kids there. So not that one approach is better, but it has to be communicated. That was our big thing. It just wasn't really well communicated.
When you talk about vertical articulation and scaffolding, those are two of my favorites. when we draw out the logical extension of those and what we're actually trying to scaffold students, and is there a way that we could pair that almost and run a parallel track between regular ed and our EC? Do they have to be diametrically opposed in terms of the methodology of teaching? I see that when people talk about inclusion model not working, they talk about, well, you know, the strategies are so far apart. In my view, the strategies could run parallel. They might not run at the same level, but they still have to be an articulation or a scaffolding that goes on.
So in my school, we actually do inclusion in one grade level for the majority of our students, 60 students. But in other grade levels, there is a strict, they're all pulled out. But what we found is that the definition of inclusion and the model of co-teaching, there are so many versions of what that is, and there are so many different times when one works better than the other, that those two teachers have to be in such collaboration that they're almost the same person. When I first started teaching, I worked with, and this, you can tell how far back in the day this was, I had the lowest level of a leveled grade. So I had 10 of the lowest kids in the grade. And my EC teacher was in the room with me. We did inclusion in that setting, which wasn't inclusion. But we worked so seamlessly together that I could start a sentence and she could finish it. There has to be a relationship there and a trust that when she opens her mouth, I know what's coming out and that it's the right thing. That doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly. I mean, but your instructional modalities have to fit and have to match. They don't necessarily have to be at the same level because of scaffolding, but they must be in lockstep. And therein lies our problem. We pair people together randomly. Again, back to the master schedule. We pair people together randomly and we expect that it's going to work, and it will not unless they very much are in sync in the way that they teach matches. It just won't work. But that's back to the master schedules. Whose name goes on those stickies on the board in what area?
The other thing we talked about though was not just the service for the EC or the special ed population in that classroom, but what disservice that AIG group is getting.
Exactly.
And we have found in our experiences that that is more difficult because we've been pressured by testing to get kids to a certain line. And if they get to the line, we can breathe. And so a lot of teachers, I'm an instructional coach right now, and a lot of teachers come to me and say, I don't know how to extend the learning and stay on standard. So that's a whole dynamic of professional development that we're lacking.
Yeah, it requires, but again, those PLCs, how do you extend the learning? I do this, we do that, let's find out a way to do it. That's where that really happens when you have that team of teachers in that PLC, that they can focus on everybody from the EC child to the AIG child and do it in a seamless manner where we go together. We might be at different levels, but we go together. That's the key to PLC work. That's what needs to be taking place in your PLCs.
Well, and a lot of schedules are built where the grade level PLC is that common time, but the support staff isn't available during that time. So we miss out on a huge portion of supports, which is what I do, is run in between those two groups and bring the PLC to the support staff and the support staff supports back to the teachers. And actually this virtual learning has really helped in that because they are available to come to our virtual PLCs.
See, that's one of the things that, we stressed in 601 is your PLCs, you can do them virtually. They don't have to be face-to-face. You can do virtual PLCs and you can include more people that way. But that again goes back to the master schedule. We just traditionally, all third grade teachers had planning at the same time where other teachers didn't, we have to look at our schedule differently and make the schedule work for us. Or if we're going to do that, then we have to do virtual PLCs as well, where we can include those people. How much sense does it make that you and the person that teams with you in your classroom doesn't plan together? I mean, it'd be harder to find a system that'd be more dysfunctional than that.
So then we went on to talk about was the path that Eugenia should take. And so, I mean, we've all discussed, obviously, that she needs to get a clue about what's happening at her school. But in general, you want to go to the next slide. Just like what we've done throughout the process and over the course of this class, while I was working on the skip, I was also reading 2 books. One is called Lead Like a Pirate, and the other one is Hacking Leadership. And both of them talk about how important your mission statement is as a principal, and that you can't just have it all, you can't have it in your head and think everyone's going to follow it. And so it's just really important to form a committee of everyone so that everybody is on board, and then they share that enthusiasm and everyone feels like they have a stake in what's happening at your school. And I feel like that principal had in her head what she thought her school was, but not only was she ignorant to what was happening in the classroom, which is not good, but she also didn't do anything or that we're aware of to lead her school by looking at that mission statement and then getting all of the stakeholders involved in making sure that that was an actuality of that entire school.
All right, now when it comes to is one point of view better than another? We agree that no one's point of view is better than the other. Now, yes, the parents does have a right to feel the way they feel, but the teacher, she has to do a better job. She should have included all her students by keeping them in the least restricted environment so that they can maximize everyone's time in learning. Teacher has to do a better job of coming up with different approaches or ways of teaching to the other students. For the next one, what kind of collaboration from the children's family might the principal and teachers propose in order to improve the exclusive education program, encourage diversity, and stimulate learning? Have parent workshop nights, curriculum nights, and school game nights. All these are types of activities you can do to help build rapport between your teacher and your parents and your principal.
Excellent.
You ready, Ebony?
Yes, I'm here. I stated that it says an expert in the area of learning and evaluation, what might Ishmael do to integrate and create some harmony out of the differences in opinion among the teachers? So I said one thing that he can do is just make sure that everyone's on the same page. With everyone being on the same page, it will eliminate confusion on how education in the building should look like. PLT among lead teachers for each grade level. Collaboration will make it easier for Ishmael to get his development across so that teachers can send it back to their department and go back and forth with conversation. Collaborative instruction, as well as creating and implementing a plan of action for staff or teachers to use each piece that everyone has said and creating an action plan for teachers to follow. And then the next slide is what actions might Sylvia take with the families of the children in question in order to learn and share the achievements and experience they have observed among the children. So I say that she could have a parent-teacher night where she has the discussions with what the students are doing in class and where they are academically. She could have a showcase where she is displaying all the children's work to the parents, and observation where she could possibly have the parents come in and observe instruction. And then she can also create a class newsletter where the students' work can be sent home to their parents in a newsletter form, whether that's writing, art, displaying their math skills, and so forth.
And that is our presentation.
Excellent.
All right,
Excellent.
Stop share. I'm clicking in now, Doc.
All right. Thank you. All right. Reclaim the host. All right. Do we have any others? I think we're good. Shout out to Jonathan and Brenda. I like that you included the ethical concerns. I always like that. We need to be mindful of that, especially in cases like this, because this is really about ethics, doing the right thing for every child. I'm going to remind you that last semester we worked on instruction, data, forming plans to improve instruction, forming plans to improve our faculty through staff development. This semester, our goal was to translate that into how to actually operate a school. Next semester, you're going to work on your personal power as a leader. And to kind of round this out, tonight is kind of the culmination of everything that you were supposed to have learned this semester. I am so pleased you put it all together. Wonderful presentations all the way through. You hit all the right notes. I'm so excited about that. Mary, you have a question about next semester? You can unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Yeah, I know that we only have a week, give or take, in between this semester and next semester. So I was just wondering when that syllabus was going to be pushed out for materials and all of that stuff.
I am going to push that out later tonight. I'm going to post, we've worked on it, and I've got the 605 syllabus ready for the add-on. I actually finished it last night. And so I'm going to push all that information into our shells tonight in the 6 and 8 shells. And those shells, we're still working on the final content of them. We worked on that. I worked all day yesterday into the night. Converting, it's quite an ordeal converting 16 weeks down to 10, especially in this current environment. We were already online, but we're looking at, how we're doing things, because this is a little bit different than normal. And so I'm restructuring and cleaning up 605, but I will put that in later tonight. Thank you, Mary, for reminding me of that.
Thank you so much.
All right, as we normally do, I'm going to close with Dr. Massengill and Dr. Tobias. I'm going to start with Dr. Tobias, but I'm going to promote her first. I'm promoting her to superintendent for the time being, and because I want her to address what she would do as superintendent if she supervised this principal. And then when she gets through, we'll go to Dr. Massengill for the benediction.
Can I brag on my colleague before she jumps in?
All right.
So folks, you may not know, but Dr. Tobias was recently selected as the Durham Public Schools Principal of the Year. So
yay, I didn't even know that.
She may be superintendent before too long.
Well, that's
Congratulations.
That's what we're hoping.
No, not on my bucket list. I don't want to do that. In case you haven't figured it out, I'm not very politically correct. That's what I want to say. So that's not a good thing for a superintendent. I would fire her. I'm sorry, because you ought to know what's going on in your building, and some of that is almost egregious. Allowing things like that to happen. So, she would be on either, I wouldn't even put her on an action plan. You would go someplace else.
See, you've been around me too long. That's why you're politically incorrect. You've been around me too long. You know what I was going to say. Oh, this was not going well. Dr. Massengill, you can close us out tonight. Thank you, Dr. Tobias.
I agree with Dr. Tobias. It's a kill or be killed situation for that one. know, there's too much risk and liability that's been brought to the table there for the principal for you not to act. You know, the other piece that I would go back to that many of the groups touched on tonight was just the importance of making sure that you have a master schedule that facilitates compliance.
Yes.
I mean, it will kill you. And if it's not right and you have a compliance issue and then you have to go in the middle of the year and change it up, your staff's going to hate you.
Yeah.
And your culture is going to be shot, and your TWC is going to be shot. And if you're in a district where you have a TWC component to your evaluation, you might be in big trouble. And so I would say, you know, involve your staff in the creation of your master schedule, but make sure that it's compliant with law. And then if they're fussing about something and it has to be that way, just be very explicit with them, even to the point where you're showing them policy and law, so they can't argue with you and they understand that it's not my fault that it's this way. It has to be this way, and they can be mad at somebody else.
Got to start. Remember, if you don't remember anything else from this semester, the process of scheduling, there's 5 pieces. As Dr. Masson goes, it has to start with federal law and compliance. That's why you have those programs first. All of these compliance programs are federal. Then state law, then local board policy that was mentioned tonight in terms of how your program is going to operate, then your EVOS scores and data, and then teacher input, and then and only then. But if you have to change and blow up your master schedule in mid-year, you're done. Your scores are going through the floor. You're done. And remembering and to amplify a point that Dr. Massengill made, if your school's TWC, teacher working condition scores, go through the bottom, it pulls the whole district down, just like your test scores do for the whole district. You would not survive this. You couldn't work for me. You're too much of a liability. The lawsuits, you couldn't work for me if you had a situation like this. I'm like Dr. Tobias. I wouldn't waste time on an action plan with you. I would help you into another career. Some things are just too egregious. Some things, remember, our core competency is teaching children, period. And if you don't do that, we don't need you in the building, leading the building. I hope you got something out of it tonight. I certainly did. You folks have made me proud, or made us proud, and made yourselves proud. You're putting it all together. You've changed your lens this semester. You now see the bigger picture. I couldn't be more happy with what you've done. Your presentations, as you sent them to me today, are uploaded them. I read through them, and I was just sitting here all teary-eyed all day. I was so happy that what you've done. I do read your post. We start every week, and I've been very pleased with your progress this semester. We'll finish up next Wednesday. We've got about a half, and then we will probably do a little discussion, a little roundabout talk. Mary, thank you for reminding me. I will get the 605 materials in our shell tonight. They'll be under course overview. I'll tell you what, I'll just make a link on the side on our menu, 605 materials. I'll do it that way. It'll be easier to find and quicker. Thank you all. I appreciate staying with us tonight. Have a great time. I'll see you next week.